Well, former President Donald Trump and current presidential candidate, unfortunately, released his own State of the Union, the real State of the Union, as it was promoted after Biden's, and we're just going to show that to you. Take a look.
Concluded his speech. So here is former President Trump.
Here's the real State of the Union. Over the past 2 years under Biden, millions and millions of...
And sometimes I stop and start and stop and start. This time, we're going to watch this whole thing through, and then I'll give you all my response to it.
Over the past 2 years under Biden, millions and millions of illegal aliens from 160 different countries have stormed across our southern border. Drug cartels are now raking in billions of dollars from smuggling poison to kill our people and to kill our children. Savage killers, rapists, and violent criminals are being released from jail to continue their crime wave. And under Biden, the murder rate has reached the highest in the history of our country. Biden and the radical Democrats have wasted trillions of dollars and caused the worst inflation in half a century. Real wages are down 21 months in a row. Gas prices have soared and are now going up much higher than even before. And the typical American family is paying $2,200 in increased energy and food costs each year. Joe Biden's weaponized Justice Department, and I'm a victim of it, is persecuting his political opponents. His administration is waging war on free speech. They're trying to indoctrinate and mutilate our children. He's leading us to the brink of World War III. And on top of all of that, he's the most corrupt president in American history, and it's not even close. But the good news is we are going to reverse every single crisis, calamity, and disaster that Joe Biden has created. I am running for president to end the destruction of our country and to complete the unfinished business of making America great again. We will make our country better than ever before, and we will always put America first. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go through this. I'll try to go somewhat quickly. He talked about the border. Biden has put forward plans in relation to the border, and Republicans, some have in certain cases been on board, but not enough. And so it was Republicans who prevented those from getting through, as we talked about. So much dishonesty on that front, fear mongering about the issues we're having with our southern border, and dehumanizing individuals looking for a better life, but not actually wanting any solutions to the real problems we're experiencing logistically and the humanitarian problems as well. He alluded to the fentanyl crisis. Again, so many lies recently from the GOP about fentanyl, trying to make it an issue of undocumented immigration, when really legal ports of entry are where fentanyl are primarily coming through, and U.S. citizens, as we talked about on yesterday's show, are actually the primary ones bringing fentanyl across. So you're actually actively working against a discussion about a real solution to the lives that are harmed by fentanyl and it coming into our country by lying about the reality of it. And Biden talked about a plan to address fentanyl during his State of the Union. He said that the murder rate specifically is the highest in the history of our country. That's not accurate. It is higher right now than in recent years, but that increase is, number one, an obvious aftermath of the environment that was created by the conditions of COVID, but also started skyrocketing whenever Trump was still president, which he's not going to answer for. He mentioned inflation, gas, food prices, and we've talked about this extensively, also being an aftermath of the pandemic, but those things are getting better, meaning that if you wanted to play the game of everything's the fault of the president or everything they get credit for, you would have to give credit for them coming down, even though we are still not that far from an economic crisis based on what happened during the pandemic. I don't think we should say everything is the president, whether it's good or bad. We need to be honest about what is affecting what. But if we're going to play that game, you also don't have a whole lot of ground to stand on. He said that Biden's Justice Department is being weaponized against him. He's being politically persecuted just because he's committed a lot of criminality and is being held accountable for it, or suspected criminality, doesn't mean that anything wrong is going on within the Justice Department on that front. He said that Biden is waging a war. And listen, I know this feels like I'm going on a long time. When you lie this much, there's a lot to respond to. On freedom of speech, where's the evidence of that? The most we've gotten is Twitter did some stuff with people's accounts. Yes, Twitter is not the government, and they can have a terms of service and all those different things. And as I noted previously in today's show, Trump's the one who called for the termination of the Constitution, which is where free speech is protected. So let's not hear, it's not great to hear that from him. I don't think he's the right person to be telling us about freedom of speech. He says our youth are being indoctrinated, probably referencing CRT, which of course is not being taught. In reality, most of the things they're upset with, there's some edge cases that aren't representative of the broader educational goals in America. But for the most part, what is really being targeted is telling an honest telling of our history so that we can prepare the upcoming generations to recognize the reality, not to hate other people, but to love other people and be able to solve the problems of their own communities, other communities, in informed ways. He did more inaccurate fear-mongering about trans youth. He said that Biden is leading us into World War III, I guess referencing the fact that Biden has led many countries in supporting Ukraine, which is a very good action because the alternative would be leaving Ukraine, a sovereign country, to be invaded and an authoritarian power to attempt to occupy them, and so much extra devastation will be caused there. Trump doesn't want to put the blame on the shoulders of Putin, who actually is to blame there. And then finally, he said that Biden is the most corrupt president in U.S. history. Again, I say I would love some evidence or some specifics of what you mean by that, because just off the top of my head, on my monitor over here, I'm looking at one that I think might have been a little bit more corrupt in recent history. But it's hard to even get through those. But that was the real State of the Union from Donald Trump, riddled with dishonesty. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the full bonus show every single Saturday, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley. Link in the description.